Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here. This is the Astrological Winds channel, and we are going to take a look at the astrological weather for the week of December 14th through the 20th. And now we're moving right into the eye of the storm. And it starts right away on Monday today, where we have a solar eclipse, and it's a full solar eclipse. Only can be seen down in the southern hemisphere, but this eclipse is going to last 3.5 hours in time. So it's a super strong eclipse, and when it's a solar eclipse, that means it's a new moon. So we have new moon, solar eclipse at 23-24 degrees Sagittarius, and it is conjunct Mercury, also in Sagittarius. It's conjunct the South Node in Sagittarius, which is why it's an eclipse. And eclipse seasons occur whenever the moon gets near where the two nodes are every 6 months. And it is trine the Mars-Eris conjunction in Aries, and it's also square Neptune. So a lot of the planets are being tied into this eclipse too. And historically, I've talked about this before, eclipses are born and they come and cycle every 18 years. So they're born at one of the poles, and at that point they're a very partial small eclipse, and they last for, I think it's approximately 1,800 years. It's a real long time, many years. And as they go along, they get closer and closer to the equator every 18 years, depending on whether they started from the North Pole or the South Pole. They're moving up or they're moving down through the centuries of every 18 years hitting that same eclipse. So the last time we had this eclipse was back in 2002, and it was an eclipse series that was born in 1624. And it's a very intense eclipse series. It has a lot of Venus energy tied up with Pluto and Saturn in the original eclipse chart. So that eclipse, every eclipse has a birth chart. Every eclipse series has a birth chart. So the first eclipse of this series back in 1624 imprinted it with some very intense energy having to do with relationships and money, actually. And there's a lot of fate tied up in eclipses. Eclipses, especially solar eclipses, are many times tied up into external events, both on the worldwide level and in many people's lives in their individual charts. And if you have mutable planets and points that are important around that 23, 24, 25 degree area, then you're one of the people that these eclipses could make a sudden change in your life. And like I said before, my favorite analogy for an eclipse is like, you're walking, say in Manhattan, if you've been in Manhattan, how all the avenues and streets, just are, one direction, north-south for the avenues, east-west for the streets. So like, say you're walking down one of those avenues for a long time. You're walking down 7th Avenue, and you're just walking for blocks and blocks and blocks in one direction. And all of a sudden, you make a right or a left turn onto one of the streets, and now you're walking in a completely different direction. That's what the effect of an eclipse can do to our lives. If we get hit by them individually, it's like taking a right or left turn and going on to another street or avenue or path in our life. Our life path will change significantly, many times never to go back to the way it was before that. And the same thing on a social level. Eclipses are, the new and full moon are when the gravity of the moon on the planet Earth is the strongest. This is why the tides are the highest at this time. So the energy coming from the moon is very strong now. So like many times you'll see natural disasters, earthquakes, bigger storms, weather events clustering around the new and full moons. And so, you know, when you have an eclipse, that just makes that alignment even more powerful. So it can, you know, have that kind of effect on the world too, where things can like make sudden changes. But this eclipse definitely in its birth chart has a lot of energy tied up in relationships and fated relationships and relationships that have just reached a point, many of which where they just need to end or, you know, move into a completely new form. And so there's like a lot of stress and tension around relationships, which kind of fits in with a lot of the Scorpio energy we've been feeling since October. A lot of intense energy going on in relationships, a lot of people changing relationships, leaving certain relationships or redefining relationships. So has a lot to do with that. And this is an eclipse, like really, you kind of want to let this thing like not react strongly to it or aggressively to it. It's kind of like one of these ones where you kind of just want to let it do what it's going to do and then get up off of that and go from there. So very powerful eclipse when it was born and can cause some great changes. And on a personal level, in relationships and money, on a world level, and very fateful too, like just really tied up. But that new moon in Sag, and every new moon is a time where is a great time to do new starts, new beginnings. And with Mercury conjunct too, even more so. Really, just Mercury and the Sun are going to be conjunct all week, exact next Sunday. So just an excellent week to really get new projects going, new subjective things, projects, business ventures, things like that, you know. But the new moon in Sag wants an adventure. It wants expansion. It wants new input. It wants new knowledge. It wants to go to the edge, to the horizon. It wants some new zest in life. It does not want to be restricted and held back anymore. So, you know, it's going to turn on anyone or anything that's holding it back. And we're going to go to where our new horizon is. And this is our opportunity to do that. And it's very interesting too, because the South Node in Sag is the eclipse here. And it's really saying what's holding us back is like old belief systems, old values, old morals, old philosophies, old knowledge. All that stuff has reached a point where it's stagnated and it's not really helping us anymore. It's kind of like really restricting us and keeping us stuck in a place. So this new moon in Sag just wants to like rip through that stuff and break through it, get through the past, break, you know, and stuff from the past can come up now. People, places, things from the past may come up now and, you know, ready to be broken with. But like anything that restricts us, you know, we really want to, you know, really take a look at and move away from. And you know, that South Node is showing it's like a lot of our own belief systems. That's the thing that can be holding us back. And what we'll find out many times when we look at this stuff closely is that a lot of that stuff comes from what we were taught by others. So we've adopted belief systems of the adults or authorities that were in our life when we were younger, or the system or groups we belong to. So maybe some of that stuff needs to be upgraded, you know, get the, you know, the new version of the software, so to speak, and get it in there. And remember, you know, the North Node then is what the new moon and sun are all, and the South Node of Mercury are all kind of opposing that North Node now in Gemini. And like I said months ago, when the North Node went into Gemini, this is an 18-month period of like, where are we going to find this stuff for this new moon in Sag? We're going to find it in new information. We're going to find it in stuff that people bring us, that new information somehow gets inputted into us, and we find it, take it in, and start to shift our values, our morals, our philosophies, the way we look at things. And many times with Sagittarius, it comes in from a foreign type influence. It could be people from another part of the world, or going to another part of the world, or somehow cultures from another part of the world influencing the way you think, changing a lot of the values you have, expanding maybe the ways you look at law, medicine, religion, philosophy, knowledge, higher learning, all those things that are those Sag things. But really, remember, the thing with that North Node in Gemini is there's an awful lot of information out there. And, you know, and Mercury in Sag, and the Sun in Sag, and the Moon in Sag are really adept at not really looking at the details of what needs to be done in order to make that bigger plan or vision come into the real world. So, I mean, you really, really need to use discernment in that Gemini North Node information download. That, like, what is the useful information for you that can be injected into your values and philosophies and give you the proper upgrade, give you a harmonious and good upgrade. Now we're also getting this trine to Mars Eris, which is in Aries. And so, like, the individual ability to actually take action is very, very potent right now. And as long as you have this interest in it, I mean, you'll go and do it yourself if you have to. You know, it's always better or more fun to do it with other people. Sag likes fun, Mars likes fun too. And you know, that's always better when you can have other people along for the ride with you. But, like, both of them will be like, well, no, you know, if you're holding me back, I'm going. And you could throw Eris's individuality in there and the whole sign of Aries individuality in there. And, you know, like, basically time waits for no one. Like, the ship's, you know, leaving the harbor, I'm getting on, whether you're not or whether you are or not, you know. So, I mean, that's really, you know, that energy is really there for it to, like, really push that. But, like, really on a bigger level, we can really expect some, like, big political shifts in the world now. In a lot of the countries that are under stress, there can be some really crazy, wild stuff start to happen. And remember, this eclipse point, this 23-24 Sag, is going to be a very, very sensitive point for months to come. When any other planet or anything hits those mutable signs, that it's going to trigger this guy, you know. So this can really bring out, like, you know, some really big, like, energy into the collective, and bring some political shifts, value shifts, philosophical shifts. And like I said too, can also bring natural disasters, things like that people will have to deal with. So very interesting. And then even the square to Neptune, that's dangerous, actually, because when you think about that, and fortunately it's not applying anymore. The square, remember last week was when we had the Sun square and the Mercury square Neptune. And so, like, you know, the aspects separating, which is good, but you got to be really careful with that, because, you know, the Sag thing can get you on your high horse and get you into this really self-righteous, arrogant position about what you believe in. And then you add this Neptune thing, and it's like you might be setting yourself up to be a martyr or a victim, or being brought by, like, some leader or authority that you're following that's actually spinning a web of illusion or delusion that you could have fallen into. So you really need to check that stuff. It's kind of bringing that discernment back in, just like with the Gemini North Node. So real interesting. And remember too, here Jupiter is the ruler of this new moon. And Jupiter is still not in strong position. It's still in Capricorn in fall. It's in the critical degrees of that, and it's between Saturn and Pluto right now. So it's like, you know, in between two very intense planets, stuck between them, kind of like they're prisoner. So, like, it's hard for the ruler of this chart in Capricorn right now to really give a lot of help. And so like that discernment's going to be really, really important, because otherwise you could just be being pushed along by people in power and authority, Pluto and Saturn, and they're taking you on their little ride, really not telling you the whole story, setting you up for a big fall, Jupiter in fall in Capricorn. So you got to be really careful about where you're going with this stuff. Think things out. Like I said, this eclipse really has a lot of fate tied up in it. And if you react to that and are too impulsive, you're going to get sucked up by the tidings of that fate. And you really need to let this stuff go, see what happens. Don't get yourself stuck in some pattern of victimhood or martyrdom or something, and be taught, brought along by someone who's still stuck on some old pulpit that he's preaching from, he or she is preaching from. And that you got to really look at the new information coming in and what's important to you, and be able to discern that and upgrade your own values, upgrade your own wisdom and knowledge. So it's going to be a really interesting next couple weeks, couple months, etc. This point, is going to be very potent. And if you have planets or signs in that, in that mutable, points or planets in that mutable zone, Sag, Gemini, Pisces, Virgo, stuff that's in that 22, 23, 24, 25 zone, it really can hit you personally. So a very, very potent start to this very, very potent week, and a very, very potent month, potent year, potent time. Times are changing and not going back to the way they're going to be. The great conjunction next week is just about here. So it's interesting also on Monday, you have this eclipse and all this intense energy that I just told you about, and it's just hilarious how the universe works to keep us in balance. We actually have another aspect Monday that's actually one of the most beneficial, sweet aspects that there is, and that's Venus sextiling Jupiter. The two beneficial planets. The unfortunate thing is they're both in signs where they're very weak. Venus in Scorpio and Jupiter in Capricorn, both very unhappy in those signs. So like the benefit it can give is not as much. And like I said, Jupiter's stuck between Saturn and Pluto too. So, but normally that's, just really beneficial relationships, the opportunity for good things to happen based on your relationships, new friendships, deepening friendships, sometimes good financial gains may happen. And it's interesting too, while that's all happening, the Venus is also conjunct Juno at the same time. So a lot of it has to do with partnerships, like it can really deepen partnerships on a beneficial level. So that's kind of interesting. Tuesday is the day Chiron goes direct. So I talked about that in a little bit more detail in the monthly forecast 2 weeks ago. And just remember, it's a time, especially with Chiron and Aries, where we really need to take responsibility for our own healing processes. Everybody is in need of healing right now, basically. Everybody has wounds. Everybody has stuff to learn. And we can't really effectively help others much if we're not dealing with our own stuff. So this is really where it's like, hey, take charge of this stuff. Take care of your own needs and wounds and things that you need, and, really push forward in that. Right after, because, you remember now, Jupiter and Saturn are going to be conjunct with that great conjunction next week. So they're right on each other's tails. So on Tuesday, right after the Venus sextile Jupiter on Monday, it sextiles Saturn. So what that means, if it's a continuing story, is those relationships, those new beneficial relationships, can start to stabilize, become something practical, reasonable, something that's like concrete in the real world. So it's real good for the stabilization of relationships. It's good for practical type relationships, business relationships, good time to make business deals, things like that. So that's also happening on Tuesday. And then right after that is the end of Scorpio season, finally. Scorpio season has been going on since about early October, when Mercury went into Scorpio, went retrograde in Scorpio, stayed in Scorpio for almost 3 months, and then Sun came in, of course, and then Venus came in too afterwards. And it's been a really intense last 2 months or so for relationships. The relationship stories that I get as an astrologer, and just, in my circle of hearing how relationships have been so challenging and so intense for people. So this is it. It's finally, Venus is moving into Sagittarius, and that will end the Scorpio season of this intensity of relationship stuff. Although remember, this eclipse also has a lot to do with intense relationship stuff. So, there's still some residual of that. But Venus into into Sagittarius is so much lighter than Venus and Scorpio. The goddess gets to have fun again. She really, gets outgoing, externalized, is really into her friends, very tolerant of others, has her own strong belief systems, and will not allow anyone else to box her into their belief system, but at the same time is tolerant of others' belief systems and can learn from others' belief systems too. So very accepting of others. A live and let live attitude, is really a good way to describe Venus and Scorpio. It's not possessive of others. It allows others to have that freedom. It wants to have freedom itself. It likes a variety of relationships. It's not really committed or wanting to feel like it's possessed by one person, So it's a very, very vivacious, outgoing, lively relationship type energy. And so very interesting there that we're finally going to get out of that heaviness of that Scorpio energy in the relationships, and maybe now can form some new friendships that can really expand our horizons and, push us into new places, and support that too. Finding people who support that for us, who believe in our freedom and don't feel threatened by that, and, are happy to go there with us and not having to lead the way, but want to, go together at the point. So real fun time for that Venus and Sag stuff. And then on Friday, Wednesday then is when Saturn goes into Aquarius for the next 2.5 years. And as I said, I talked a lot about this again in the monthly reading, the blog 2 weeks ago, so you can refer back to that. But, Saturn in Aquarius is still in rulership. It's still strong. And as I said, it's a higher octave of Saturn. It's where it recognizes that, the structures around it do need improvement, do need an upgrade, and will use like science and technology, things like that, to help, bring a new structure, a new form, something, things that work better. And this, and it can bring us under the influence of groups in society that are working to do that. Saturn's the lawgiver and really does want, the law upheld, justice served. And in Aquarius, it starts to say, the traditions actually need some updating. That there's like, things in society that aren't working that well anymore, that a lot of the norms are no longer working. So it actually favors like nonconformist groups within the structures of that society. They don't want to throw the whole thing out. They want to bring in new stuff and make it better. And that's also, in our own lives. So we can, gain that stuff, bring it in, and start to change, and build a new foundation up with that Saturn energy. Build that foundation up, create some new structure and form. So that's real, just about, Saturn's just ahead of Jupiter. So it's going to, get into Aquarius a little bit before Jupiter, but it moves slower. So it's going to stay there 2.5 years, and the thing is, Saturn, remember the Aquarius thing is all about making things more equal, making justice and society more equal, making it work for everyone, questioning what's going on and changing what's not working. But it has a way of discounting emotional input, the artistic, abstract part of life. So can kind of get stuck in this more serious intellectual approach. So don't, go so far overboard that we forget to bring that in. But it is like an energy of revolution, but it's like revolution within a structure or form. Saturday is when Jupiter goes into Aquarius too, and that will be for 1 year. And finally, Jupiter will be much happier. Get me out of Capricorn, please. I don't like to be there. And so Jupiter is going to find new ways of doing things. It's going to take in all this new knowledge, this new input, possibly from other cultures, other places, innovative ideas, and it's going to download all that stuff with Saturn into these systems and we're going to see some very rapid changes, most likely in the next year or so, within societies ourselves. And we have many, many countries right now in the midst of chaotic change where things are changing. So this Jupiter into Aquarius is going to be bringing in lots of new information and knowledge to the people and the populations of these countries, and giving them the ideas, the innovative new ideas that they want to get going into society and into their lives, and just making things better, wanting to have what their version of justice is, and their version of the right way to do the law. So it's improving all those things: law, medicine, education, philosophy, values, all those things. Traditions are being looked at and saying, we need to shake out some of the stuff that isn't working anymore. Bring in stuff that's more socially conscious and present to what's going on now, and create new blueprints for our structures and machines, do some rebuilding of what's going on. So very, very potent energy. And like I said, talked about that also in the monthly. So maybe there's some more in there about it. Juno is also, the asteroid Juno, which represents partnerships, the wife archetype in the female archetypal energies, is going to go into Sagittarius too. And that's supporting our partners in their expansion, in their quest for new knowledge and things like that. So it's really some interesting energy there, but it's also where we can find out we have disagreements with our partners over values, and maybe that's too much of it, something that can't be lived with anymore, and maybe combined with this eclipse as part of that relationship thing of, something changing quickly, I need to change this. Venus is trine Chiron that day too, which is interesting because it does help heal relationships. We help learn about ourselves through relationships, and in very harmonious and soft and beautiful ways. So there's this opportunity next weekend to really get some healing done in our relationships, or in the way we approach relationships, with others. And that's also the days the Sun conjuncts Mercury, the superior conjunction, which is part of that whole new moon eclipse thing, and just continues to reiterate the point that I made, that it's an excellent week to start new projects, new business ventures. You have ideas that are very subjective, admittedly, and maybe, you know, you're not taking in a lot of input, but you're like getting a lot of experience, life experience with these ideas, and you're ready to like kind of like get them out into the world, kind of put them into something that's productive, even if it's just communicating with them. It can make us not a good listener. Like we're kind of a lot more interested in our subjective viewpoint with the Sun Mercury like that, but still it's like, you know, people, you know, who are ready to receive our message will be there for us too. So really interesting week for getting new stuff going. And then comes Sunday, couple things on Sunday. So Mercury is going to be the first of the planets to leave the Sagittarius zone and go into Capricorn. And when Mercury goes into Capricorn, the mind kind of slows down, especially after being in Sag, where it's been in detriment, where it's like having the tendency to overlook details and get sloppy with approach and appearance and things like that. When it gets into Cap, it really slows down and gets practical. And it says, you know, before I make a decision, let me really look at everything, think things over, get everything together, use the wisdom and knowledge I have before I make a choice, before I speak. So slow to make a decision, but very well thought out. You know, not a lot of words, but the ones that come out are actually, you know, meaningful and well thought out. So really good for business. Again, Mercury in Capricorn is a really, really good business time where you can really focus on your business stuff and get that stuff done. So really excellent time for that. And otherwise, last thing of the day, end of the week, is when Venus quincunx Uranus. And that's a really interesting aspect because in the sense of like, it makes people jump back and forth in their desire for either freedom or a relationship. So it seems like, okay, if you're in a relationship, it may feel like, oh, you know, this is like restricting my freedom and who I really want to be. And you could end up creating some waves and chaos within that relationship because of that. And if you're not in a relationship, then it's almost kind of like you're looking for one, but like you can be a little bit too quick and impulsive in your decision making with that and kind of not end up in possibly the best situation. So it's an odd kind of, you know, position to be in because it's you're almost like your own contrarian, really. Like if you don't have it, you want it, and if you have it, you don't want it, kind of thing. So very interesting week overall in the sense of like a lot of shifts going on with the relationship because of the eclipse, and then all that Scorpio energy moving out, and then the Sagittarius energy moving in. So kind of like it may make us feel like that by the end of the week, where we're not really sure which of the two poles we're more interested in. All right, very intense week astrologically. Another intense week coming up. The great conjunctions next Monday. So next week's blog will be a lot about that. And I'm in particular going to focus on the United States chart with that and how it hits the United States chart and see where this next year and next quarter in particular is headed for the United States, which is really, you know, obviously on very shaky, changing ground right now. But in the meantime, you know, expect some sudden changes with the eclipse. A lot of the Sagittarius energy starting to come in to fire us up. A lot of the Scorpio energy is starting to be left behind and setting us up for this great conjunction and the turning of the ages. All right, I'm Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Become a follower and you will hopefully get the notification. You got to turn the notifications on. I know that, and you may actually have to have an account too to get the notifications, but it's also, the podcast is also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so if you just want the audio version, you can go and get it there too, and just look up Astrological Winds channel, and you'll find it. And I am available for all kinds of readings. My email is mattHue823@gmail.com. Drop me an email. We can talk about prices, natal charts, predictive, children, fixed stars, relationships, elections, horary, whatever kind of reading you may possibly need, and classes. Okay, so the beginning astrology class, there's 4 classes available. The 5th class is gonna be up this week too. It will be the completion of going through the zodiac. So anyone who wants to learn more about the signs of the zodiac, there's 3 classes, one for each types of the signs, the mutable, fixed, and cardinal. And the classes are $25 a piece, and they're on Dropbox right now. So pay the fee, and I give you the access to the Dropbox file. If you are a student, there's a $5 discount if you can show me a student ID. And those classes will continue, I think, after the zodiac. It's going to start going into the cross matter, and then the rising signs. So some fun stuff with the class. And if you want to be a student, just take the classes sequentially whenever you want to. There's no set schedule on anything. So available now as files. Eventually, I'll have a link on my website where you can just hit the link and get them that way. All right, until next week, sign off. And next Monday will also be the solstice on that. On the day of the Great Conjunction. So really looking forward to that. But in the meantime, try to use this new moon energy, get something new going, something, Sagittarius that is expanding your horizons. And until then, I will see you next week.